YouTube? Welcome back to another video in my new space. Only the second one so far, because I've been wildly busy just coming back and doing a bunch of stuff and having friends in town and blah, 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 blah. So, here's my first video back. For reals, I guess. You might be wondering what this is. This is going to be an equipment update, and thankfully, this is not mine, so we'll start with this and we'll get to the cool stuff, even cooler than this, here in a moment. This is not a 50 AF3 like you guys have seen before. I think that's the only other Haag horn you guys have seen before. This is a Haag. You can see the maker's mark right here, Haag, a Swiss manufacturer of brass instruments. They make some other stuff too, I think. This particular instrument is a 45 HV Haag valve. 45 is just kind of like a, it's not really a model number, I think it's more like a series number. The farther you go back in time, the lower the numbers are. The farther forward you get in time, the higher the numbers are. And this is from like the early 2000s. And I just played another instrument that I think is from the late 90s that had stainless steel Thayers like I used to have, and that was a 43 TV, I think. So Thayer valve 43 series. Now, all the instruments are made by a totally different person. Same company, but by a different actual maker, and they're a totally different design. So what's going on with this design? Well, at the time that these were made, the best slide tubes that Haag could get, that they weren't making themselves, were Yamaha slide tubes. So you might recognize basically all these parts here are from the Yamaha 613H, including the lead pipe. This is a lead pipe from a Yamaha trombone. Haags are a little strange in that these slides are extra wide. This is not the same width as like an Edwards, Shires, Bach, whatever. It's got an extra, just a little bit of width on that. So kind of like looking at it, you're like, seems a little wide. And when you see someone play it, it just looks really wide compared to any Bach, Shires, and especially if you're used to like a Con, even narrower. This is just like, woo, even wider. So lots of Yamaha parts in this, the cross brace accepted. And then of course the crook is not Yamaha at all. That's a Haag part. We have Haagmans, Haagman. They're both based in Switzerland, but totally different companies, so don't confuse the two. And these ones are in perfect shape. All of the valve tubing, the tuning slide, I think, no, not the slide tubes, and the bell are all gold brass, so that's really cool. Just like everything is gold brass. Yellow valves, because there always are, they're from Haagman. Then yellow slide tubes, nickel crook, and obviously some nickel trim, as well as the tuning slide legs being nickel themselves, which is kind of just a German tradition thing. Again, these are Swiss, not German. There's a big difference there. Don't confuse the two. And actually these instruments, despite having like a couple German-ish tendencies, like these have a 10 and 1/4 inch bell, I think, so not quite 10 and a half. And they have this kind of large overlap on the bell rim. Other than that, they're kind of more American. Strangely enough, you wouldn't think that being Swiss, but the 613H, where a bunch of these parts come from in the slide, is an American instrument made by a Japanese company. And most of this stuff is kind of more American sized. And so you get this really, really well made, super cool instrument that kind of just plays well in all ranges, that just makes this big orchestral sound. And this particular instrument played in the Seattle Symphony for probably, well, since 2004, dozens of years, playing a bunch of ring cycles and a bunch of real stuff. So really cool I get to borrow this for the moment because my tech still isn't finished with my Olson axial bass trombone. It'll happen someday. I know it's a meme at this point, and it's kind of cool because I keep getting to borrow cool instruments like this. So Haag 45 HV 45. I don't know what the order you're supposed to say it in. I'll have this for the near future. I might do a full video on it. I haven't played it that much, so I can't tell you a whole lot about it. The less interesting thing of mine that got fixed, and don't worry, there's a more interesting thing as well, is my valves work now. And I think I can say that like without an asterisk. I think they just work. Ben took the valves out and did like a bunch of work to the valves themselves. The casings were fine, but there's something about the Yamaha Monel, which is the material the valves are made out of. It's not stainless steel, it's Monel, which has more nickel in it. There's something about the Yamaha material that wears kind of unevenly and exposes the brass ports, and there's all these intricate details, and he brought them back to life. And now they seal, they move, and they play really well. They just feel like they're actually valves now. I've had a couple times where the valves will kind of work on this for a bit, and I'm like, oh, I have a euphonium again, and then they stop. Right when I start to feel comfortable with it, I'm like playing stuff in a brass band, and then the valve just slows down, stops moving, and fingers crossed, knock on wood, these will not do that. So for now, these are fixed, and that's actually very exciting because I have not played as much euphonium as I want because I don't want to, because the freaking valves don't work. So very excited to actually put some time into this, maybe get better at it a little bit. I did somewhat during the pandemic, but not as much as I wanted because they didn't work. Now, piece de resistance, TR-185 with the D-slide and split triggers. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, probably majority gentlemen, but hopefully there's some ladies watching, and non-binary, whatever you choose. I have this done. I think it's pretty much done now. So Ben split the triggers. You can see here, it used to have this really useless thumb arrangement where you could only play both valves and then one valve, which is just so useless. There's no point in that at all. So it's basically just a single with a flat E slide, which is also pretty useless. So I had him split the triggers. The problem with Holton's is, on basically every bass trombone in existence that's made currently, the valve tubing is 0.593 inches in inside diameter. And there are different thicknesses of tubes, so sometimes they don't always fit. You can kind of work around that, shave stuff down, whatever. But Holton's, because it's Holton and they're just weird, are 0.585. So where do you find stuff for that? Unless you have a bunch of Holton stuff sitting around, which some people do. Thankfully, I went today to John Sandhagen with Ben, who happens to be down here, and John just happened to have parts to a Holton J. Friedman tenor trombone, which uses the same valve tubing as the basses. And now I have a D slide. Is it good looking? Not especially. Does it work? Yes, it does. So now, instead of having this useless, not useless, it's just very not useful, F/flat E, which does give you a low B, but the low B is in 7th. Now I just have a normal F/D dependent bass trombone. I didn't use the second valve at all there, but you get the idea. This thing just sounds great. It plays really well. It's got a good low register despite having, just kind of small rotor valves. It feels great. It makes this really chunky, dense sound, but also it's easy to play. It doesn't, I said this before, but it doesn't feel like vintage good where it makes a cool sound. You don't want to play it. And it doesn't feel like modern good where it plays really easily and sounds pretty boring. Kind of meld of both. It's got parts of both camps, mostly the vintage part. It's not perfect. It's not as good as like a brand new Shires or anything, but man, what a cool instrument, and I'm very excited. I've literally had this for like 3 hours at this point, so I haven't played it at all, but I'm very excited to put some notes on this, and I'll have full videos on basically all these things. Coming up, of course, is the Olson axial bass, which will be finished at some point, someday, in the future TM, as well as my 36K, which is, you know, already pretty good, but is going to be convertible. It's going to have artisan fittings, so the Bach Artisan series, I can put on different bells and stuff, and have a reverse tuning slide. So that's going to be completely different when it comes back, as well as having the valve worked on. And I'm also thinking, since I have this really nice 88H with a Thayer valve, and I've been playing it a lot and it just works, I'm thinking about having my two 42Bs, because I have a silver-plated 42B and a not silver-plated 42B. What if I did this and made them into one 42B3 with two valves? How cool would that be? So, stuff coming up soon. Actually playing gigs, I'm teaching, stuff is happening. It's very exciting, playing duets with friends and stuff. I hope you guys are doing as well as I am, and I'll see you next time.